rifling through papers over here. I'm like, oh, this just in. Over to you, Alima, with sports.
Okay, so I believe, although right now we don't have any viewers, I believe we're live. So,
Okay.
yeah, YouTube just told me.
All right.
So take it away, peeps, while I set things up. Actually, let me just make sure. And yeah, it's going stream. So it says we're live, so I guess.
We're live.
All right, let's go.
Is there anyone
Sure.
out there?
All right. Well, just to begin this week, we're going to be focusing on parental involvement in school, primarily or specifically for high school, but it could be for really any grade. And I think that whatever we talk about as it pertains to high school students should definitely be understood that at a middle school level and even down into the elementary, it'd probably be even more important of a parent's involvement at that point. But we're just talking about the idea from the perspective of where we are as educators in the high school setting. But what we did was we put out a survey that we had 871 responses to of high school students who answered questions that were involved. I was kind of go through the questions. So parents, guardians should be involved in their child's education through high school was the first question. And then they had a range of strongly disagree all the way on up to strongly agree. The majority obviously has selected something as agree or strongly agree, but a third of them selected neutral on that, which is kind of strange that they wouldn't necessarily have an opinion of whether their parent or guardian should be involved. And then a very small percentage, maybe 10% or so, said strongly disagree or disagree. So that's a small percentage, but again, that's not too surprising. What would you say would be surprising out of that? Would it be like the neutral part? That kind of jumps out to me, like why they wouldn't
I
have an
would think
opinion
that
on
a teenager has some very strong opinions about their interactions with their parents. I know I did. I did. So to say you're neutral about anything with regard to your parents does kind of surprise me. That
almost
that
feels
many
like they
people-
don't have a say or something. Like,
I don't know, is that
who
it?
am I to tell my parents what to do?
or
Almost,
they
or is
can't
it-
be bothered one way or the other. I don't know how to interpret that.
Yeah.
How do you see that?
I think it would be more of how I was in high school. Like, I'm already doing this, so I don't know if I need them to be involved, or would it hurt me or would it harm me? I don't know. So I would probably pick neutral if I were still in high school, because I was already doing what I needed to do. So to
Right,
think of
right.
them being more involved, I wouldn't have known how much it would affect me. How
One way or
it
the
would
other.
impact me.
Okay.
Sure.
So that's
So I guess this might be more maybe self-sufficient students,
Right.
That are just like, should they be more involved?
meh.
Yeah, would I need them to? Or I
Right.
guess it's kind of like maybe that.
I don't think it's strange whatsoever, really, because I mean, from my standpoint, when I was at school, I went through pretty cluelessly. All the way through high school, and I know it was a different time. I guess I didn't graduate. I stopped going to school 1986, I think, and just a different world. My mum was like a ninja when it came to that stuff. I remember I was good at art. The guidance counselor said, would you do anything to do with art? Would you do anything to do with photography? Maybe working outdoors? Little did I know, they actually knew what they were doing. They looked at all these charts, and I took the tests and the aptitude tests and what have you. And I just thought, well, there's not enough to go around. Like these two are going to be the graphic designers. I'm going to have to do something else. And I wasn't living in a world of plenty. I was already not enough. And it's only in the last maybe 15, 20 years that my attitude on that has actually changed. And now I know there's actually enough for everyone. But one of the key things is my mum, one day, she was downstairs in the hallway mirror, and she was combing her hair. And I just got out of the shower. I come back from the gym, eating her out of house and home. And she said, Andrew, just wondered, have you ever thought about going to college to study art and design? And I stood there, towel wrapped around me, and I looked down. I was like, yeah, that sounds like fun. I walked on to and that was it.
As far as
She
that
did her job.
Sure.
Parent involvement.
She
Yeah.
did her job. But that moment was so skillfully played for me. She knew how much involvement I needed. I don't remember those moments when maybe she reached out to the school, maybe something happened. I don't know. I've just
Right.
pretty much kept my head down, and so that's, that's my little story. I'm done for the night.
But that, I mean, again, you're bringing up a good point about what are you aware of
Yeah.
as their involvement, because this again is going based off of the students' awareness
Yeah.
of what their contact level is. And I don't know if every time that we get an email as staff that the child's aware of it either, so we don't know sometimes if that's something that they're but so then we move on to the next area, which is my parent or guardian is actively involved in my education, to which again more than half selected agree or strongly agree. Agree was at 40%, and strongly agree was at about 20%. About 26% selected neutral, and then about 15% selected either disagree or strongly disagree, to which we had a follow-up question based on what they answered for that one. So one was, if they selected neutral, disagree, or strongly disagree for question 2, would they benefit from a parent or guardian being more involved in their education, to which 65% selected no, they would not benefit if they were more involved, but 34%, or which means 144 students, said that they would benefit if their parent was more involved.
Those that don't think they would benefit from their parental or guardian involvement, is that self-delusion? Is that, no, I don't want you to meddle with what's going on at school, or is that, no, truly you'd mess things up, or it'd be more pressure, or it would be, because I think we all see students where sometimes there's too much involvement.
Yeah, well, that's the next one. The next one's the more involvement. But this one is more if they identified as being neutral, or they said my parents not really involved, their guardian's not really involved. That might be more to what you were saying earlier.
Yeah, but I think we need to go back to that number that you said. What was the 144?
144 students or high school kids said they identified as, they said they would not. Would you benefit? And they said yes, they would benefit.
Yes.
So, yeah.
So-
they want more involvement.
And that's what I think,
Yeah.
right? We need to focus on that one.
Yeah.
Like, there's 144 kids that are saying, I want my parents to be more
Right.
involved.
Right.
So I'm wondering, again, we go back to one of the first episodes that we had, communication. Like,
Right, yep.
is that something that's being communicated? And if it's not, like, where's that being lost? And how can we help that 144 kids?
Well, my question, follow-up question there would be, the people that said, I'm one of the 144 that I need more involvement from my parents. Are the parents, have they broached that with their parents? It's different, I think, when you don't get something, but you really haven't asked for it.
Yeah.
Then when you've asked for it, you've made it clear, hey, I need a little help over here, and you don't get it.
But it also could be how many of them haven't even thought about that until they were asked this question.
Yeah.
Right.
So they might just be sitting there just going through the motions and just say, this is how it is as a student in high school now. And then when someone asks them the question, would you benefit? They're like,
Hey,
yeah, I
wait a
think I
second.
would.
Yeah.
You know what?
And so this is really what the podcast is about. And I keep telling the students, I said, this is about trying to create a communication between parents, teachers, and students, or staff members of the school that gets everybody on the same page. And I said, how many of them would benefit from a parent knowing this, like having this
That's
information,
it.
asking these questions, having a dialogue? So, I mean, anybody out there who listens is like, there should be a conversation had between a parent and a child as a result of what we're doing today.
Yeah.
That says, like,
Yeah.
A
how would
check-in.
you answer that question? Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And a lot of them identified that exact phrase, check in with me, check in
Yeah.
with me
Yeah.
about how I'm doing on a social level, on an emotional level, on an academic level. And don't just kind of like expect that because I'm going to school, because I'm coming home, because I'm not asking you for anything, that everything's okay.
Now, what did you say? That 144 ends up being about 1/3 of that pie chart?
Yeah. A
Because
little
I
over
got to
that.
tell you, if I knew that about my child's school, my immediate reaction would be, A, am I involved enough? And B, is my child, the odds are 1 in 3 that my child's one of those people who says, my folks aren't involved enough. I mean, that I think would really jump out at me.
Right, and then it's not a matter of blame either. This isn't
No.
a case of saying like,
Oh, well.
"What's wrong with you, parent? Like, why didn't you do it?" It's more of like, this is something a lot of parents might not be aware of. It might be their oldest child. It might be, things have changed drastically since we were all in school, technology and things. So it's more just having a better understanding and asking the questions to say, just because I don't hear anything doesn't mean everything's good. It's not no news is good news.
Right.
It's so we have to just check in.
There's like multiple sides of it, because I do get some students that come and they're like, I want my parent to be more involved, but I'm unwilling to have that conversation with them because they have that old school. They're like, my parents have that old school thing, you don't tell me what to do, or you're the child, you just just go through life. So they're afraid to have those conversations. And it's always like, I'm like, but you don't know until you try. You can assume that that's what the conversation's going to look like, but you don't know until you try, right? So I guess that could be part of the problem with the fear of having this conversation with your parents, who, another line that my student said to me like very recently is, what more do you need? I give you the clothes on your back. I put the house in this roof over your head. Like, what else is it that you need me to do? I'm giving you everything.
Yeah.
But I mean, for any parents out there, just know, like, some of them need a little bit more.
Yeah. I mean, with just a little bit of extra involvement, it could really help change the trajectory of their lives through high school and beyond.
But I think it's important to understand what the children view as involvement. Yeah. It's not necessarily doing something that's a lot of time and energy and money. It's not any of that. It's literally, most of them are just saying, and we can get into their specific open-ended responses later, but it's just saying, like, just talk to me. Like, just have a deeper conversation with me about things other than just, how's your day? Okay. And then move on. It's more about the depth to things, about saying, how are you doing? What did you learn today? How do you feel? Thank you very much.
We have one of the best hosts ever.
The studio assistant bringing in the water is my wife, the lovely Dee.
Well, I think we can also. I'd love to drill down deeper. Of the 144, how many of those people do not have that conversation because they know that maybe mom is up against it or dad's up against it anyway. They've got enough. They've got siblings. They've got younger kids. Maybe they got an older person at home that they've got to take care of. Maybe they're hesitant. It doesn't mean that they're angry or resentful. I've talked to students who will tell me how much work and effort and how tied up their parents or parent is. So, I mean, I wonder how many of those people would say, yeah, I wish for a lot of things, but I shouldn't expect that.
I think you probably deal with this a lot, Alima. It's almost like where you figure your kid gets in the car and they go to their headphones, they're listening to music, whatever. They're just head deep into a phone. And a parent might assume they don't want to talk about anything, right? So the parent might assume they don't want to hear anything, right? So then there's that communication breakdown where you probably have the experience where it's like, dealing with, like, as a therapist level, to say, go ahead. Like, you just are quiet long enough, or you sit there long enough and you just wait for someone to kind of bring something up.
Yeah.
And you kind of just let that kind of pause happen. And it's just like, how was your day? No, you're not going to avoid this. It's just like, tell me what happened. Tell me what you learned. What did you do in each class? And then you almost just kind of eventually get to the point where it's like, all right, I did that. Now you have a conversation.
Yeah, but I think it's usually an easier question, because it's like, oh, did you have a good day? So then they have the ability to just say yes or no. Right. And most of the time they'll just say yes, or say like, that was all right. Right. And then you avoid the conversation because you're not asking a little bit of a deeper question, So I think that that's something that usually comes up. But even with, like, students that come to my office and they're like, I just wish my mom asked about my game. Like, something as simple as, I wish they just asked about the game. They didn't have to come to it. They didn't have to see me play. But I wish that they just would have asked, But again, are parents just thinking that those things, they don't need to be checking in on those things?
Right.
Like, where is it being lost? Especially if a parent's not an athlete. Maybe they're like, it's not important to me. So me asking about it, and I don't know the sport, may not be important to them. Or what about the parents that, I have parents that have to call with a translator. What if they don't know some of the things that they're learning about in school, so they don't ask, because that's one of the reasons that they don't ask. There's so many different layers to it.
I just stuff I can't talk about on this particular episode, but there's things I discovered that parents don't know that happens in school, and kids want certain things to go down a certain way, and yet is not something that's sometimes known at home. So it's just
Yeah.
there's a lot of that going on, and I was blown away this week with stuff that I'm always learning as a teacher, and yeah, what a world what a time we're going through, just incredible. But anyway, I got like 5 or 6 thoughts arm wrestling in my head right now. So yeah,
Which one's gonna win?
oh,
Let's
I
go.
don't know. I'm always like one step away from verbal disaster, I tell you. After the shows, why did I say that?
Do we have any viewers out there? Hello,
4.
everyone.
Yes,
Oh,
hello everyone.
yeah.
We
If
got,
you have any questions or comments of anything, feel free to throw it in there into
got
the
4
chat. We can
viewers.
kind of steer towards the directions if you have questions and things. But especially if you're a parent or a student out there, high school age or anything, just, see how this would work to have a conversation, to use this kind of platform or to use what our topic is to kind of create a conversation in the household about what can possibly be. I think that's important.
Hi, Mr. Puttup.
That's a good conversation. See that communication there?
good man,
Um,
good man.
So just jumping in, and again, not ignoring, obviously, as I keep saying, like that number, 144 students who were, for various different reasons, as we talked about, it's just
Now-
more of the individual parent and student to be able to say, like, even though it might not be a language issue, even though it might not be a miscommunication on things, or maybe it's not that we're super busy, just to kind of, whatever their issue is, whatever the breakdown is, just to kind of just open it up.
Did
well,
you
yeah.
did you
No.
initially say how many students were polled overall?
Yeah, I
Yeah,
mentioned it was
okay,
like
sorry.
871.
All right,
Let me just go to the next part of that. The other half of that question was about students who put originally agree to question 2, which again, just to recap, was my parent or guardian is actively involved in my education. The students who selected agree or strongly agree to that question, I asked, would you benefit from a parent or guardian being less involved in your education? To which 29%, which is 160 students, said yes, I would benefit from a parent being less involved.
I
in my
wonder
education.
how would you think it's pressure?
Yes,
It's all pressure.
Absolutely.
Hands down.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
just the idea that, and many of them expressed that in many of the comments, that was a recurring theme of the amount of pressure, academic pressure, the pressure to succeed, to get high grades, and not even necessarily with a focus or goal in mind, just to have the grade. And I think that goes back to the conversations. If a parent just says, how was school today? And a student internalizes that as, how are my grades? I don't want to talk about it. Then they're just going to say, it was fine. We're moving on.
Yeah.
Or it
Did
could
you
go-
have any grades today? Yeah. How'd you do? Fine. And just try to, they don't want to just be asked about grades.
I think
That's the other thing.
there's a danger that it could also go the other way. It's preemptive sort of. It's a preemptive shutting down because the parent or the guardian doesn't always or maybe ever truly ask. They're giving a how's school today, but not really caring about the
Yeah.
end result. So I think there's 2 sides to that coin. So yeah, and look, one thing I wanted to say about this amazing poll that was done today. Thank you to all the students that filled it out. Information like this can then be used because it's anonymous and we don't know who said what, and that's awesome. But we can use this information maybe to put it up on the site, the app, whatever, to maybe have a cheat sheet. Look, this is how you can approach your parent, maybe to back off, or maybe to ask for a little bit more involvement, to give them some ideas, not necessarily the answers, but maybe to give them a bit of courage and say, look, try these approaches to get more of what you want. And that is that emotional learning aspect of it, right? To overcome those little barriers and hurdles. Yeah, I learned all that in my my little thing that I'm taking.
Well, even if a student
course.
were to use these questions on their own and, bring them to a parent and say, well, this is a survey I got in school today, I think that would be enough to break the ice. Really?
Oh, yeah.
What did you say here?
Yeah.
Well, I said, this, or I answered this. And you wouldn't even have to say that. You could just throw the question out. You might even, I used to do when I was in the classroom, I used to do a project where students had to interview somebody. And the point I was trying to make with the project is, and I've experienced this so many times in life, somebody can tell you something in 5 minutes that could save you 5 years of your life.
Yeah.
Okay. I've gotten terrific advice from people I hardly know. Okay. Just absolutely terrific advice. So the students would have to come up with 20, 25 questions. And probably the most popular person to interview would be their mom. And I cannot tell you how many students over the years have, finished up, because then they had to reflect on it with an essay with, there was so much about my own mother that I did not know, and it kind of, for a grade, it forced them to engage. And I used to read some of these, and it just, when you're a child or a student and you realize that your dad and your mom were not always 40 years old.
Yeah.
And they didn't come here at 40. They came here the way you did. And, may have had some of the same ideas about school. A lot of the interviews that I read talked about the sacrifices that some of the parents have made, some of the dreams that they had to give up on, some of the near misses they had. They were in school back in another country and almost got the education that they wanted. So, I think that helps the students understand, well, yeah, okay, you know what? Maybe this is why my mom is pressing me so much, because she doesn't want, this story to end the same way, So, I mean, it's something to think about.
That's where most of the pressure comes from, though, I think. Even if it's not a conversation, it might be internalized by the student as, I know what my parents had to do to get me to this level. A lot of our students are first generation or second generation, and they're coming here, and their parents are kind of working their butts off and trying to, and then the job of the student is to get good grades. So whether it's expressed or just implied, it's like, I have a lot of pressure on me to become a doctor or to be the breadwinner or to do something. And again, it's there's a lot of students I feel like that are put in that 160 that said they're too involved. It might just be like that pressure of just being, in a way, of like this, what their past brings, that extra baggage of like expectation and worry.
I mean, on my side, I can see how many times a parent or a student log into PowerSchool. I can actually see the number of times they log in, like, per day. And there's some students who, when they come to me and they're like, all the anxiety and the sadness over their grades and high pressure, I go in and I click the button and I look, and it's because that parent's been logging on like 1,000 times per day. Every time a grade is uploaded, they're looking at it and trying to see what went wrong, not how they're doing, but what went wrong. And I think that PowerSchool's a great thing, but also in some
100%.
cases,
Yeah.
it's
A double-edged-
terrifying for
a
the student. The
double-edged sword.
student is terrified all day waiting to get a text or to get home and then have to hear it or be reamed out by their parent for one thing that they may have missed.
Yeah, I wish I could tell. I wish I could tell specific individuals, but a message to all parents, really, that adding that tipping point of pressure that crumbles that student, that crumbles that child in school, that creates those issues that are for them insurmountable because that's their world, right? They don't know yet that it's important, but it's not. I'm an educator, so how can I say that grades aren't important or effort isn't important? I've told all my students at some point, look, you're going to end up with a better trajectory if you put in the time and effort now. But I'm telling you, if each and every one of you left school today and didn't do anything for the next 5 years and then hit life again, you're going to end up okay. That's I've seen it time and time again, but that's nowhere near the accepted,
Blueprint.
story and what have you. But, and it's sometimes those that rebel, that you look, or those that didn't finish school, that didn't finish college, they are some of the top people in every industry, like Steve Jobs and the PC guy, I could forget his name now, Gates, like a whole bunch of them, some of the top people on the world, they just dropped out. I guess they were able to, or they think different. But it's I think sometimes parents can put so much pressure, and having that aggravation, again, just because we're adults, it does not mean that we know how to handle emotions. We don't know how to put pressure or to not put pressure, or how not to shout at our child because, you know, you're not putting in your effort and you're just goofing off all day. I got a phone call from so and so. And again, I played it as an educator. I almost played it a little bit heavy with one or two students a couple of years ago that were sophomores that could have been doing better. And this year, I'm just handling them completely different because of the whole pandemic situation and SEL situation. And I am getting amazing results, but also they're older and they're on their way. They're on their way out of school. So, yeah, you got to find that right level. Cause I think it's very easy to, I remember that my world on several occasions when it was over, you know, because I got to go home. Where am I going to sleep? I got to go home. I got to go in through the front door,
Right.
you know, and whoever it was, mum, dad, both, or what have you, because I'd done something, typically because I was the eldest, you know, you should know better. But despite all of that, you know, here I am, and I'm quite happy with the results, even though late starter, late bloomer, I would say. But yeah.
So as far as the chart that we had for the fourth question, it says a parent guardian should be involved with each of the following as it pertains to their child's life. I thought this was an interesting one. I'm going to read off the app because I have the whole thing right here. But these are the different areas. I'll just read those through first. Attend back to school night. Ask about school and homework. Keep up to date with the child's grades. Get in touch with the teacher if the child is struggling in that class. Attend school functions with their child when possible. Monitor the child's social media accounts. Establish a reasonable bedtime for the child. Monitor the child's mental and social health. Limit the child's screen time for non-school related purposes during the school week. Allow their child to work at a job or not. Choose a career the child will pursue, and choose a college the child will attend. And that was all possible responses. They could have clicked as many as they wanted to. So again, 871 responses, and the number one area was monitor the child's mental and emotional health,
Ding, ding, ding.
which was, I think, 82%
Wow.
of the 871. That's the number one area out of all those things, more than anything else. That is far and away the highest. The next closest was 67%. So
Can we go to that one right now?
yeah, let's do it.
So, and again, this is something that I've been seeing. Again, I was out for a year because I had the baby, and I come back and everyone is struggling with their mental health. The one thing that most of my kids come to me and say, my parents don't believe in mental illness. They do not
Wow.
believe in it. When I talk to them about being sad and more than sad and depressed, they say, you're just a teenager and that is what, you know, teenagers feel and you're just experiencing it. And I've had so many times that I had to say to a parent, like, if your child needed glasses, would you get them glasses? And they'll say yes. And I'm like, your child needs more than, you know, they need help with their mental health. Like, this is something that's a need, but I'm finding that the parents, they can't see it. So they don't understand it.
Yeah.
So
Don't want to, but like they don't recognize that it's more than just sad. Like
Yeah.
that the kids that have anxiety, that, you know, they can't be in the hallway when the bell rings, like that it's more than just like something. It's something that's interfering with their daily functioning.
Yeah.
And the thing is, we have to understand this. I was telling the students even today, like the world is so different than how it was when we were in school. So what applied to us and how we can view how it was when we were in school, oh, there wasn't any mental health, this and that, whatever, right? Like that kind of mindset of like, we didn't have the same, but the world is so different now as far as technology. Like just for adults even to be on these social media sites and post something and then to hear and to be aggravated about a response or a non-response, and just that if you were going through your formative years with that same type of attitude, it would madden me.
They're living, the students of today, the children of today are living through firsts. I remember my son and my daughter, two separate occasions, doing something that was questionable. For example, and I feel bad, but there's a moral to the story. You know, I dropped my daughter off in Harrisburg. She was underage at the time. She was at her mum's good friend's house, and you know, she went to the Walmart. She walked to the local Walmart, and I did a search. And Harrisburg, that particular part, has so many abductions, children abductions. You know, as a parent, this is the type of. And I didn't think, again, just not thinking, parents. I didn't think that, like, you know, dude, what you doing? It's so not safe for you to do that. And I think I posted on Facebook, because she did that, and I just responded there, because that was like but little did I think, now the rest of the world seeing the dirty laundry, I had no clue. And it was only later, maybe a year or two later, that I was like, oh God, what have I done? You know? And even though my son did something similar, different situation, a bit more kind of hardcore type of thing, and I kind of put him straight. And again, just because I was right didn't make it right. So again, just choose the ways that you approach your kids. This whole social media thing is just it just presents so many different issues, and this we've never had to. We're learning how to deal with it, you know, now.
I just remember as a teenager, and older than you guys are, this idea that so many things were just chalked up to, you got to get over it.
Yeah.
Yeah. We don't have time to talk. Like,
Stiff
even if I wanted
stiff
to.
upper lip, as we would say in the UK.
It's almost like an understanding that, like, I don't have time, you know, even if I wanted to get into this with you. I can hear that at other people's houses and stuff like that. But the part that made that easier was it was kind of like an agreement of culturally in this country, at least where I lived, was that, well, you know, Joe's father says the same thing to him, you know, or Scott's dad, he says the same thing to him. You're a bunch of dopey teenagers. You need to get over it. So in a way, that might have been easier. Well, like, if you know, everybody's getting treated this way, so I guess I just got to get over it. Everybody's saying the same thing, you know. Whereas I think it's a lot tougher for the current generation, because they are getting different messages. Yeah. They do know that some people get support. And now you're thinking, well, Joe's parents got him help. They didn't say just get over it. You know what I mean?
Right.
But my parents did. You know, so look, what I'm saying, back in our day, it was like we could kind of, you know, misery loves company, and like, well, yeah, my dad says the same thing. Yeah, your dad says that. Yeah, your dad says that too. Yeah. What am I gonna do? You know what I mean? Right. Whereas now, I think you got this mixed bag. You've got some of the, you still have people with that older mindset that get over it. You know, it's time to get over it.
And that's a dangerous thing when you start. If you tell the wrong person to get over it, and they just go, okay, I guess I don't have any problems.
Well, you're invalidating them,
right? But it's also it could be one of those things where you just kind of swallow it down, and just you don't realize how it's going to affect your life going through college, going through your early years in the workplace and things like that, to the point where you're like, you get into your 30s and 40s, you're like, oh wait, now I'm getting to see help. How many adults do we see now with mental health issues? Are you telling me that there were no mental health issues at any point leading up to that, or is it now becoming something because now people are more aware of it, more educated about it, you could research it, and you kind of can, you know, so it's not a matter of it's a generational issue. It's just for some reason people seem to be targeting kids as like, no, you can't possibly have what I have as an adult because I have more stresses than you, or whatever it is. It's like maybe you had those same stresses, but you just you weren't aware of it, or you didn't address it. And
I feel like people don't talk about it. Like, people don't want to talk about their mental health. It's almost the stigma about mental health and just appearing as though you're different or that you can't function in certain situations. People are afraid of that. But it's like, again, you have to talk about it because there's other people that are in that same realm as you, that are in that same space, and everyone needs help at some point in time.
In my lifetime, though, I think it's gotten a lot better. I think people in general have gotten a lot more sensitive, a lot more open. Not completely, and not where we need to be probably, but just remember, wow. I mean, there were times in school where just all the adults involved in a situation were just, we don't have time for this, you know.
Yeah.
I remember specific episodes, not with myself necessarily, but in school, I can recall the participants, again, not just the parents, cutting people short, just being very coarse with people. You know, you don't have a lot of resources or a lot of time or, dare I say, even like a lot of interest in pursuing this.
Yeah,
you
yeah.
know.
They would even they would chalk it up to behavioral issues a lot of times. They would just relocate them to a different building or whatever. You know, a lot of times they're just like, we're not going to have them with this group of kids. We'll find another place for students who are, you know, more uncontrollable or whatever, and they won't try to fix anything. We'll just try to move them and shuffle them around.
Right.
And again, it comes across as a disciplinary issue when it's really not. There's probably much more to it there. But just the idea, I think, that you can't just tell a kid flat out that you don't know what you're talking about.
Yeah.
Because that, like you said, the invalidation of that whole process. But it's also just like the fear I would have of becoming that person that says that is more, not that I say like some things are like in sports and stuff, sometimes you do want to like, come on, like get out there, like motivate. But there are times when you're just dealing with a person to person relationship where you don't want to just make a statement that just says, oh, please, like just dismiss it, because then you're done with that person. As far as their ability to open up to you, you've just shut that person down. Now they're not going to come to you for anything. And then if you're a parent doing that, then who are they going to go to? And then would you rather that person be the one handling your child's issues and trying to get them help? And what kind of relationship are you going to be able to foster with that kid if that's how your approach?
Again, looking back from my own experience and asking, is everything okay? And being met with, be it past relationships or other situations, and you hear that, no, everything's not okay, and realizing that you're not equipped to handle that situation, and being immature at the time and not emotionally aware enough that I would kind of almost ignore it or poop it. Oh, well, come on, let's go, whatever. And then, put a Band-Aid on it, but we're not addressing anything and we're sidestepping it. Then it grows into something bigger. And that initial issue is right there, just waiting to be fixed, and it's, again, that's what I want Mellow to be, where we can shine a light on these issues, and we can help you kind of overcome and piece all this stuff together bit by bit. We don't have all the answers, but we want to get as many resources as we can, and we want it to be the best sort of site that you could go to for assistance or to find somewhere. So that's why all these topics are very important. And even as we talk, I just see, we could have a resource and
referrals.
Yeah, exactly.
Absolutely. I mean, I can't tell you how many times, I've called a parent and said, I have some concerns about your son or daughter or whatever the case may be. And I just wanted to provide you with a list of referrals. And they've just said, thank you. Like, they didn't know where to go. They didn't know what was accessible for them. And another issue that a lot of parents are, they're like, my insurance, will they take my insurance? If they don't have insurance, can I still get them help? And they're really hesitant to even look into anything because of those different things. One of the things about our school that I love is that we have the teen center, on campus, where they can sit with a clinician who can give them this weekly session that they can have so they can get the support that they need. But sometimes they need more.
Yeah. Well, it's funny because you guys are talking about resources, and I really want to qualify my approach before. I don't want to come across as being overly critical of a generation that's not here to represent itself. And I have to believe, based on what you two just said, was, what did you want from us? There weren't countless resources. The countless resources, you're talking about the Mellow app, you're talking about resources that you deal with every day, the outlets, the aid that's available. That just wasn't around, say, 40 years ago. So I think somebody from that generation may have said, well, you know what? That's where we were left. We were left saying, we got a whole lot of nothing for you. I wish I did. That's why we say get over it.
I just had a very quick thought on that, and I know I said that just now that maybe this generation is dealing with a lot of stuff that no one's ever had to deal with. I think that before, because it's survival, right? When you've got no outlet to deal with something,
Right.
you have to deal with it.
Mm-hmm.
So that was my parents, that was their parents, and I could name very many different situations where they all had it just as hard, maybe harder. But it's all what they say, because now I'm on the spot. But anyway, it's all relative. It's all relative.
Right,
I'm
right.
sorry. I needed 2 more cups of coffee for tonight. But now there are resources, and students are able to today kind of open up. And I think there's a dynamic there going on, that they know that there's a resource, so they can be a little bit more open. And I think the dominoes start to fall. Well, also this is going on, and also that's going on. So we're seeing more issues, but I think maybe there's always been just different issues.
Sure, if this is 1940s, right? This is 19.
Bingo.
We're gonna play that number. All right.
No,
That's exactly what I'm saying. I mean, in defense of prior generations, if it's 1940 and you're thinking the world is not my world, the world is everyone's world is coming to an end right now. And by the way, I'm not really feeling really good about myself. Really? We're going to get to that. All right. I'm going to put that on the list of the to do things. Right. But right now, I mean, I remember my friends, one of my best friends, they grew up in Holland. And I remember, just matter of factly, the mom telling us a story about how the cousin had one arm because a grenade came into the house. So I'm just saying, like, I think there are different problems now that have to be addressed differently, but I don't want to discount. I don't, in fairness, I don't want to discount the different types of problems that previous generations had to deal with.
It explains parents, partially.
We don't know. We don't know how many people who said, get over it, were thinking, oh, for God's sake, I wish I had something to say to you or offer you besides my, get over it. But there's a grenade coming into the house. We're dealing with that right now.
And it's also a matter of saying, if it's almost a defensive thing to say, if that's what we were told, right, growing up, get over it. It's almost like you're saying, I turned out all right. I was taught this.
How many
way,
times have you said that?
right?
Yeah.
And you just say, well,
How many times have you said that?
if this is the motto I was told, then I want my kid to be more resilient or whatever it is like me. So there is the balancing act you have to take, but I think the conversation still needs to be had, and you still need to get a professional to kind of gauge whether
Assess
or
the
not
situation.
you can't just make that assessment yourself and just say, I don't want to believe you have an issue where you need to see somebody or be on a medication or anything. So I'd rather just say get over it. But I mean, if we have the assessment and the assessment comes back as, okay, a impartial person has assessed the situation, assessed the individual, and they came back with this, you have to be willing to then say, all right, it is what it is, and then we're going to take the steps that are necessary. It'd be like anything, right? If you have a child who is deaf and you have to learn sign, you have to pick up on things. You can't just be like, sorry, you got to figure out sign language on your own and not learn it themselves. You have to be able to start picking up on it and say, okay, I'm going to deal with the situation, I'm going to move forward and make the best of the situation, whatever it is. But I do think that some of the other things that are on here, just want to get to quickly. Attend back to school night was 46%.
I was surprised.
We don't get 46% of parents
That's
showing
the
up.
first thing I
No.
thought of.
but yet the students are identifying that is something they should be doing, yet
And
we
that's-
don't get 46% of the parents even close to that.
And
No,
it's very
no.
interesting to me that because I just think about back to school night, and I think about like the craziness at our own school with back to school night and getting to the right classes and then the fact that they can't even talk to you about their kids, right?
Right.
Like that's one of the things. So I feel like not that it's what they should be doing, but I feel like a lot of parents are like, I can't even talk to the teacher about my specific child, and that's what I want to do. And that may be why a lot of them don't
Yeah.
come.
Sure.
That could be a very valid point, and I think maybe if there was a different way of interacting, because I always thought that back to school night prior to becoming a teacher was that you would sit with each of the parents, and talk about the child, and yeah.
Well, in schools now, I know for my daughter's school, they have a back to school night, and they have the same thing with my son, a back to school night that you just talk about the curriculum and how you operate and what your expectations are and things like that. But then they also have you sign up for like a time slot to talk with them personally for like a 10-minute time slot that you can either meet with them personally or via some kind of WebEx.
Yeah.
But I think that's helpful. Like we're gonna have the meetings next week, but like we already had the back to school night. But I do still think there's validity to at least getting to see the teacher, even if it's through a WebEx like we had, just to kind of show face, just to be like, I am the parent of so and so, and thank you for letting me know what's going on. I know what your expectations are. If there's any issues, feel free to contact me, whatever, just to kind of create, a line of communication
And I
there.
think the WebEx, again, if it's in person, I feel like that makes it hard. And then it goes back to like the who's working, who can't get there, who doesn't have a car, who can't watch
Sure.
Right,
the
yes,
younger
absolutely,
kids.
yeah.
But
Long
I
list
think
of
that,
reasons you might
and
not
so
be there.
going on what you said, if there is a WebEx and it's electronic and they can just log on, even letting them log on with your kid there, so
Yeah.
that it's like we're a part of this and we're together on this.
So Amira
Hi, Amira.
said we did time slots in the middle school too, and it's really great. So
I mean, even if they had something where they could set
Thanks,
it up
Amir.
like a half day schedule, and then we have time slots in the afternoons or something like that. Even if we did it for a week or whatever it is, and just kind of say we'll have WebExes sign up for it. I do think there's early in the year, like even if it's the
Yes.
first month, we have to kind of get that out there and just be able to have, and we could have the general, video that we could post out there that gives our general idea of what's going on. But I think it's also the idea of then the personal one-to-one. This is how my kid operates. This is what my expectations are. Okay, listen, I'm going to help them with this, but understand that the grade's not going to always be whatever. And then there's that, again, we need to have, that's why we're talking about Parents' Day. It's like everyone needs to be on the same page.
But what a great way. I know that in graphic design, we're doing some really cool stuff. I know as a child, I want my mum and dad to see what we're doing in
Yeah.
class.
Right,
Like, look at
right.
all this really cool stuff. What a great way to participate. And then you as a student feel like, oh yeah, my mum and dad or my guard, aunt, uncle, whoever's looking after, they got a sense of pride in now and what they're doing.
My question for those students would be this: is it what I think my parents will actually get out of this, or is it more symbolic for them? I mean, the students that are bothered by, I get it. My parents didn't go back to school, and I think they should. Is it because they see that as a symbol of not really being engaged?
Right.
Like they, your parents went back to
Right.
back, and so did yours, and so did yours.
Yeah.
But my folks didn't. The other thing too is I've been married for 21 years. I have one child. There were times when I had to work the back to school night, but my spouse was able to go, and vice versa. So it was I guess twice as easy for us to have a parent as back to school night as it would have been if I had been, say, or my wife had been a single parent. Right.
Yeah.
I think you have to kind of appreciate that too.
One of the things that like stuck with me back when I was a teacher, right, teaching creative writing, is during back to school night having a full class of parents. But this was like years ago, right? But a
Right.
full class of parents when like nobody could get on or off campus, like one
Yeah.
of those nights.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
And being like, today
Yeah.
in class, what we're going to do while your time here is write something for your student. You're going to write something
yeah.
for them.
Yep.
Sure.
And in one class, it was the most amazing thing that every parent was able to make it, and every kid in that class was able to get something from their parent that night.
Amazing.
And and the kids kept them. Like, that shows that it is something that's important to them. But it's
Right.
like, again, going back to, are they just feeling like, wow, this person, their parent made it, and you just weren't able to make it for me,
That's
Yeah.
the
for
hard
whatever
part, though,
reason.
too,
Right,
is that, you know,
right.
if you do something like that, it's the kid that might not get it. You're like,
Yeah,
damn, I
yeah.
can't. Because I still remember when I was in 6th grade, a note that my dad left me
Mm.
on the same thing. And I got there and I opened up an envelope and I read it. And it was like stuff that just he and I would talk about. And I'm
Right.
like, did anyone else read this? Like, I was like embarrassed. And like called me like nicknames.
That's funny.
And I was like, and he's like, I didn't say anything. I'm like, oh, okay. It was like cool though, because I was kind of like huddled there reading it, like a little personal note from my dad. But it's just, that's the kind of stuff that like, it's that even getting to just jumping out of a sequence here a little bit, just to get to the point of some of the students were writing about, and I think, and Amira just touched on it as well. The idea of just like, it says, someone knowing that they care is all we need, a student wrote verbatim. And Amira writes, it just feels good to have a parent involved in your school life too. A parent can get a sneak peek of how I am at school too, not just how I am at home, and help form a new sense of communication and connection. Exactly. It's the human element of it. And that's what we're trying to talk. It's not like parent as the adult of the student kind of thing. It's like just being the parent, just being a support system and things like that. I think that's the point. You know, when these students are writing about, and the quotes that came up over and over and over, and be supportive, be understanding, motivating, not, you know, stress inducing. Talk to me about how things are going. Ask about mental health. Be a parent. Be a support. Be proud sometimes. You know, of what I'm doing. Like, show some of that, like the interest in what I'm doing and what I like. It's just that, like,
But
the love. That's what it is. Like, just show love. That's
But isn't it also a mirror, a reflection of last week as well? It's the same thing, but of the parents.
Yeah.
So not just of the school, right, and the educators, but it's also of their parents. It's required and needed by everyone.
right. But I think that sometimes gets lost with the high school age student because, and again, I don't have children that are high school age yet, but
It's
I
they're,
just
like, in
know.
transition.
But yeah, but I've had high school age kids for the last 18 years, and I just have noticed the idea of when a parent has that, like, the affectionate love side, and they are involved in the education, but they show that genuine interest in the person, not just from an academic standpoint. And you can see the students, like, sometimes they won't be there to be like, oh, I went somewhere with my dad, or I went somewhere with my mom. Just the grin on their face of like, I can't wait to go do this. And you're just like, I have no problem with you being absent for that. You know what I mean? Like, I want you to go do that with your parents. Or whatever.
I remember when my dad took me out one time and he secretly told me I'm his favorite son. That was not. No, he didn't.
Well, so much of this too, I think, has to do with the type of relationship you have with your parents, and by the time you get to high school, a lot of that has developed. You either have like a very high level of communication or some kind of mid-range thing, or it's unfortunate for a lot of people. I want to just say students, for people, even adults. When I talk to adults who tell me they either have a close relationship with their parents or they never really did, or they'll see something maybe in your family that they know is lacking in theirs. And it isn't just students. It's something that happens to people.
Yeah,
And I think it's unfortunate. By the time you get to high school, you're probably aware of in detail of what that relationship is like, and in defense of both parties, it's hard to change that. You go home one day and say, hey, you know, Mom, we haven't had a long conversation in a long time. Let's start that. And I mean, I guess
I've been encouraging
you know,
kids, but
you
it
should be
has to
doing
start
that.
somewhere.
Yeah,
If you just leave it, then
yeah.
it's never going to change, right?
Right.
Yeah.
Like, it has to start somewhere. And that goes back to when we talked about expectations. Like, if you're not talking about it, there's not going to be any change. You can't hope for change and it just happens.
Yeah.
It doesn't work that way.
No, it has to be conversation.
Well, that's what this hopefully can do. I was telling the students, I said, look, I know these conversations are difficult, especially when you're in high school, and especially when there's like, there could be a lack of communication, because I think what I've experienced with a lot of the parents over the years with high school age children is like, they don't see their kid that much. So they don't want the times that they see their kid to be combative.
Yeah.
That
So
makes
they
sense.
kind of like let things go. They just
Right.
want to keep it like almost more superficial in a way, and just not be at odds. so they it could come across as disinterested in a way.
Yeah.
But they're just like, how's everything going? Okay, everything's good. They almost feel like if I pry too much, it's going to become a problem. And they just want, especially as they get older through high school, as they get closer to maybe graduating, moving on, moving out, they feel like, I definitely don't want to rock the boat on this relationship because that
They're
could
about to
be,
be out of the house.
yeah,
They're
that
about
could
to-
be it.
right.
So they don't want to add kind
That
of things.
totally
They want to
makes
become more
sense.
friends. And I get that too. It is a very difficult time, but things can change when you get to high school, because if you have younger siblings, as a lot of the students do, younger siblings, and it's like they've let me go and now they're focusing their attention there. They think I'm okay, so now it's like now they still have the same pressure, but it's like they're not as involved, but they still have the same expectations. So that can be very difficult as well. And I just know, I have 3 kids, so I know what it is with 3 young kids, that they all want your attention all the time. And the second you do something for one, the other 2 immediately want that to happen. So like if I pick up my son and throw him in the
Me
air,
next,
my
me
daughter's
next.
just running over and she's
Yeah,
like, let's go.
yeah.
You're doing the exact same thing. And then my 1-year-old runs over, let's go. And now they always
Yeah.
grab my legs and,
Yeah.
and I have to like walk with him on my legs, and I'm
Yeah.
out of legs. So I have
Yeah.
to pick one of them up. So I'm like,
That happens to me in my class as well.
it's like
Yeah.
I'm sitting there and I got like 2 like, just holding on to me, and I'm like, that's like
Yeah.
drag an arm or something. I'm like, so it does become like, that's metaphorical of how it is to be a parent, where you
Yeah.
have, you could have a spouse, you could be taking care of a parent, you
Sure.
could be taking care of, you're doing all these things, and yet you have to also balance your children and give them enough time, and that's why I think sometimes, kind of getting off the parent side, but students need to find an adult voice. That could be a teacher, it could be a coach, it could be a counselor. Yeah, and that's the point. And just say, listen, I might not have the same attention at home, and understand why that could be.
Yeah.
And it might not be any fault of anybody.
It just might be treading water.
Right. And then just be like, and there's a lot of times where we can be that. Like, can you come to my game? Let's do it.
Yeah.
Right. You know what I mean? And, or can you come to my art show? Yep, absolutely. What, that kind of stuff to show like support. And it doesn't always have to be it's obviously great to have a parental role there,
Yeah.
but you don't have to feel like you're left out because you don't have that. You can have people show you support, and that
Yeah.
can feel that same need.
Yeah. No, good stuff.
Where are we at time wise?
4 minutes.
Yeah.
Left or over?
Left.
No, that
Yeah.
was pretty good.
That was pretty good. I do want to say that if you're a teenager out there, I do feel like I want to say one more thing about I've been a teenager and I've been a dad, and neither one's easy. I don't think either one is an easy thing to do. I think it's especially hard to be a good son or a good daughter, and I think it's especially hard to be a good dad or a good mom. I think one of the things I've noticed about fatherhood is, I've used this before, I think, if you've ever tried to park a boat, if you've ever tried to pull a boat up, up against a
Dock.
The loading dock?
yeah, is that you have to give it throttle, and then you'll have to lay off, and then sometimes you have to reverse throttle. You just can't pull it in like a car. There's no brakes on a boat, so sometimes as a dad, my experience as a dad is you have to try to find that throttle, the amount of throttle. Am I putting too much? When does interest become pressure?
Yeah.
And when does laying off the pressure become disinterest?
Yeah.
And that's, guys, it's not an easy thing as a dad. It's not an easy thing as a teenager. I think maybe we got to cut each other a little bit of slack sometimes. It's going to take some effort, I think, on the part of the parent, and you can't just say, well, this is the way you are, and then your parents say, well, this is the way that you are, okay, and then you shouldn't be surprised if things stay the same.
Right. Typecast them.
Yeah,
That's it.
I've made those very mistakes, being loving so much and caring so much and asking so much, and then as maybe a guy does sometimes, we know how to fix things, when maybe it wasn't requested. So and again, it's just in retrospect and with maturing yourself, and again, that's what all of this is about. I think through most of it, it's just incredible that I know a big part of it is social, but a lot of it on all parties is emotional learning.
Yeah.
You know, listening, speaking, allowing to speak, and really listening, not just talking and then preparing the next thing you want to say as the other person is speaking. Although that's exactly what's going on in the podcast.
I'm not even thinking of what to say because Amira already gave us something really great that
What's
I feel
Amira
like
saying over there? I
it's
can't see
gonna
that part.
something good to know. As long as we are both trying our best to be there for each other, I think things will always improve. And she's talking about the relationship between child and
Sure.
parent.
Yeah.
And I
The
think
wisdom.
Amira, you
Yeah.
were right on with that. And I'm guessing you may have some experience with that, right? If you're able to say that. So thank you for sharing.
Yeah.
I want to add one other thing. I think this is absolutely terrific. I used that before, didn't I? Terrific. And I did read it. You put these questions together.
Yeah.
I would love to see the complement to this. I would love for students to give
a
a
parent.
similar survey to the parent,
Parent,
and then
that would
take a
be
look
great.
at the data. You know,
Right,
what
give
what are
them
your
homework to do.
what are the folks thinking? To be fair to them.
Thank
you know,
you.
To be
Yeah.
fair to them.
That would be great.
Well, how do
mean,
I assign them?
Could we? Of course, the numbers would be small.
I could ask my classes.
That
you know.
would be the next
Yeah.
step to this, wouldn't
because
it?
it's not fair. It's not
We
fair
don't,
to the
we
parents.
don't need to talk about this right now.
No. No, but just as a domino. But this is what this is all about.
Right.
So
Yeah.
as a domino, just
Yeah.
to kind of get that conversation going for some.
Yeah.
Hey, mom, we took the survey, and hey, would
Yeah.
you mind
That's
taking this?
But I do
Right.
think too, it all goes down to
We love you too.
I love
Thank
too,
you.
Amira.
She said email the parents. It's like email all the parents right
give them
now.
homework, Amira, right? But I do think it goes back to the whole purpose of SEL is to get the human element, not looking at teacher, student, parent, child, but just looking at people, and they just seeing the human element to everybody. And I think that's what the SEL concept is that remembering that we are all like strip away our titles
team.
as a parent, as a wife, as a father, as a whatever, as a student, as a player. It's like we're all people, we all have issues, we all want to be heard, we all want to be validated in different ways, and just kind of understanding that even though you're going through different things as a teacher, as a coach, whatever, but we're still trying to like connect with people on an emotional level and let them know that we care about them deep down too. And I think that's the key thing here.
And unlike previous generations that didn't have these resources, we have them, and if we don't use them, it's as if we didn't have them, right?
I mean, off the air, I got lots of ideas for the site for this.
Well,
stuff.
thank you,
Yeah.
viewers.
There's 7.
Thank you.
And prospective viewers in the
Thank
future.
you so much.
Yeah.
Hopefully
Spread the word.
this helps out, but you know, we appreciate your time.
Talk to your folks, will you, please?
Yeah, thank you for tuning in.
I think what I'm going to do is I'm gonna make a small number of shirts, and I'm gonna get them out to probably like 10, and
Yeah.
whoever the top
The viewers.
because I got stuff to make ours. So
cool.
Amir's already winning.
Amira wants
Yeah.
to-
Where's my shirt?
good night, Amir. Thank you so much. I'll be here all week. Try the deal. Good night.
All right, till then.
Good night, New
Right.
Jersey.